just like to welcome everyone to the Assets and Infrastructure Committee meeting today, and everyone's here, I think, and I think we have, there's an apology from Joe Stringer. No, there was no other apologies. I think everyone's here, so would someone like to move that we accept the apologies? Stuart, and a second to Andy. All those in favour that we accept Joe's apology, please say aye. Aye. Against, it's carried. We'll crack straight into the first report is the independent review of the Gore Multi-Sports Complex chiller and air handling system, and Martin, I think, is going to speak to this one, or take it as read and ask for questions probably.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I will take the report as read. Happy to answer any questions that there may be.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Martin, my first question is, has iSport Southland been in touch with you at all?
No, not since receiving this report. However, I do know they have been busy in other areas, and I also know they've had people away, so my expectation is I probably won't hear from them until next month, but I will follow up this week with them.
Councillor Phillips.
Thanks, Chair. Just to let you know that I have not a conflict, but I am a member of iSport Southland.
Thank you. There must be further questions. Councillor Phillips.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I can understand Martin's frustration on here, and I think we have to be very careful being in an open committee in regards to operational stuff, etc., considering that we have an MOU with iSport Southland. My major concern is that iSport Southland haven't returned anything and no information about a way forward at this stage. And you know, there's lots of articles about building ice rinks and how to do it properly and how not to do it properly, of course. And I think it's just a matter of getting a working group through together and working through this process, and whether it's the council's problem or iSport Southland's problem. And I do feel sorry for the manager of the multi-sports complex at the moment about the frustration that he must be feeling. Personally, I think we should just hold fire until we get a reply back from iSport Southland and see what's exactly happening there, what they intend to do to rectify their own issues, and whether or not they've actually indicated that they have issues first. And well, I think we should go from there.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor McKenzie.
Martin, something I just noticed, the supposed problems with the big roller door, with the air coming in through it. On that picture you can see light underneath the door. Is there a recess in the concrete for that door to go into?
There's no recess. There is a slight lip. However, it's the same as you would find in any garage door, so it doesn't have a complete close off for it.
Because back in the day, if we were building any building that had concrete floors and roller doors, we would always make a step where the roller doors were going to stop the wind blowing underneath. And it's just a small point, but I noticed it didn't look like it had a recess underneath the door for it to go down into, because it does help to stop the breeze blowing through.
Correct.
Yeah, it was just a point that I noticed on the photograph. I couldn't quite see if there was a recess there for the door or not.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I agree with Councillor Phillips. I'm happy to move this recommendation, and we wait to hear back from iSport Southland.
So you'd move the recommendation that the council staff will wait feedback from iSport Southland Executive Committee on the recommendation contained in the report completed by Jackson's Engineering, and that once the feedback from the iSport Southland has been received, the council consider the feedback and determine its role, if any, in implementing recommendations from Jackson's Engineering. And it's seconded Paul McFarlane. Any comment, Paul, or not? No.
I think the same thing. There's a lot of questions we need to ask, but I don't think it's the right forum at the moment until we hear back from them.
Ben Bell.
Can I just make a very, very minor adjustment to the recommendation, Chair, that consider the feedback as part of the long-term plan rather than dealing with this in isolation, because I think the ice skating rink and the pool are much bigger conversations considering the renewals in 28 and the MOUs in 30, well within our LTP. Is it okay with the mover and the seconder?
I think we make that decision when we get a comment back from iSport South, and that's what I believe.
I think it may take time to get that comment back, and we may be moving forward with the long-term plan at the same time. So there could be. I think we move on the motion as it stands, and see what eventuates. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. Page 23, the Three Waters Quarterly Levels of Service Report from Aaron. It's reasonably straightforward, but Aaron, any comments on that?
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'll take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Aaron, just for the people that are listening, I hear out there and about that I've been ringing for 10 years about a blocked drain. That would be an incorrect assumption that people are making out there. And just to clarify, what happens when a call comes through?
Through you, Mr Chair. When a call comes through, a job is lodged. That job is sent to the network supervisor, myself and the team lead. That job does not get closed off until that job is completed. So people saying that jobs been, or they've had blockages for 10 years, maybe make sure they're reporting them correctly.
Councillor Phillips.
Thanks, Mr Chair. I've just got a bit of a concern about the increase in the percentage of not only the general customer request, but also the 120% increase in the flooding request. I'm just wondering if it's, hopefully it's not due to failing infrastructure, but more to the point is that it's educational. Can I just ask the manager what he thinks?
Aaron, have you any comment on that?
Through you, Mr Chair. I think more of it's around the events are happening more and more frequently and for the flooding, and people are now calling those in lodging jobs more and more frequently.
Could be a matter also if we've got better communication systems that people do log things in, and we expect action to be taken quicker, whereas a lot of it, in the old floods, it was self-help.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit concerned about the workload. If it's a 120% increase from the workload of the staff, and you've got a very minimal staff, it becomes very, very tight and a lot of pressure put on them.
Yes. Jason will comment.
Yep, just a good observation. I think Councillor Phillips, I think it's right that I think we're advertising more for communication to come in through our customer requests. Again, a lot of these aren't individual jobs, particularly around the stormwater. That's around flooding events, and I think that's an indication to the communication that goes out, the channels that we have with Anteno, etc., and I guess the awareness that we have from a staff level about the general stormwater network and flooding issues, and we're trying to be as prepared and facilitate those as much as possible. So I'm not necessarily seeing a significant increase in response. A lot of them are more collectively people informing us of issues that we're having and helping us to to address them through those intense rainfall events that we have.
Councillor Fraser.
Thanks, Jason. So but we could be getting multiple calls for one event, and that could be our increase as well, with people actually calling more.
Through you, Mr Chair, yes, the September event we had 50 calls, all within a couple of hours, requesting service.
Same area?
Different areas sustaining flooding, but yeah, it was for the same event. Some of them were for the same house. Some people were calling 3 or 4 times, asking for assistance.
Any, 60 minutes would be pretty hard to fulfil with the number of staff we've got, to be honest. That's Neville's comment, isn't it, Neville? You concur with that? That basically 60 minutes is probably pretty hard to do when you get a flooding event with
Very much
multiple
so,
events.
and they do very, very well.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Would someone like to, any other comments? Otherwise, would someone like to move that the report be received? Ben Bell moved, and a seconder, Stuart McDonnell. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. The Gora Matera wastewater consents renewal project update. We'd like to invite, welcome Matt back. Keep his seat warm again. And he can comment. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Yeah, so just obviously take the report as read, probably just in terms of an update since the report was written. The draft application for Matara has now been completed and submitted to Hokonui Runanga so that they can do their cultural impact assessment, and so the Gore draft application is on track to be completed and passed on to Hokonui Runanga probably sometime next week, so that's tracking reasonably well, and once the Hokonui Runanga have had a chance to have a look at it, they should be able to hopefully give us a time frame as to when they'll be able to complete their cultural impact assessment. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr Chair. It's not really a question, it's just an observation. Once again, you know, $815,000 spent at the moment. It's a burden, a lot of burden for ratepayers to be paying. It's not over yet. The question has to be asked, what's the risk? If we don't get an agreement, I think central government needs to pull their head out of their sand and help us out somewhere along the line. You know, look, we can't keep doing this. You know, we just can't keep doing this. We can't keep burdening our ratepayers with this kind of stuff all the time. You know, where do we go? Where do we go from here?
I've heard government is actually working on stuff, but we can't do anything until actually the law's changed, and that's going to take time. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, but the thing is that in the meantime, the burden relies on the poor ratepayer to try and find some more money to keep this active.
Jason.
This may be appropriate time just to quickly talk to the government's bill that was released about 5 working days ago. We've now got till the end of this week to provide a comment back on, but that sort of is the first part of the local water done well, I guess, 3rd round type of reform approach. So I guess from staff perspective, we've just been working both regionally and thinking about it locally in terms of that impact, but this is something we'll probably try and bring to council just for some high-level comment in the next day or so, just to provide some feedback around. But there certainly is a challenging time for communities who are bearing the costs of rate increases and also trying to manage significant infrastructure upgrades. So I think to point Councillor Phillips, it's not lost on staff, and I think there is a need to continue those discussions with central government, and in the interim we'll be doing what we can to look at how we manage our way through this whilst we process the information that's coming from central government and trying to put it into what that means for the Gore district and how we can work together with our communities to try and bring them along on this journey and understand the implications of where things are heading in the Three Waters space. But it's constantly changing and evolving at the current time.
So in the meantime, we have to keep going, but I think it'll be as slow as we can, is it?
I think the key thing to remember is that we operate under the legislation as it's currently outlined. We need to renew our discharge consents so that we can legally discharge wastewater, and so that's our fundamental goal. We're working obviously to get these consents in with the regional council to process, and we'll be keeping an eye on the direction of central government as we go through that process.
Any Councillor Fraser, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just on that, is the Runanga on a timeline that we require this back at a certain time so we can get in within our timelines?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I mean, we've certainly expressed to the Runanga that we'd like it turned around as quickly as possible. I guess it's been a little bit of a chicken and egg situation in that they need to see our application before they can understand how much work might be involved in there or how much time it might take to do their cultural impact assessment. But certainly the plan is to give them a chance to digest the information that we've provided and then follow up in a week or so and see what their expected time frame is.
Thank you. Mayor Ben Bell.
Thank you, Chair. I don't quite know how to phrase this and fully recognise what Jason was saying around we've got to operate with the law in front of us. If the regulatory, so the indications we've got coming out of Wellington is that the discharge to land versus discharge to water conversation is highly contested within Wellington, and we could get some direction in the near future around that. Given that this consent isn't in with the regional council, if there was to be a change to come out of central government, what sort of position would that leave us in? I know we've done a lot of work around the discharge to land, but ultimately if that discharge to water is more feasible and affordable, how does that leave us? I'm just trying to walk down this path a little bit if we suddenly get a shift in direction in the near future.
Just to comment on that, are we still captured with the existing law, or do we move with the new law?
The key, I guess, try and answer this question. The key, I think, is to ensure that we have the information in front of us. But look, it's our application, so we have the ability throughout the process to amend or vary that condition, that application based on legislation change, and we would go through that. I think in this instance, what we would be looking to do is, if there was a major change from central government, we'd obviously look to notify the regional council, ask for an opportunity to review the consent, because I think there'd be a significant process to go through in terms of that. We have put a fair bit of time and commitment from a number of different parties into getting the outcome we are progressing with. But that change would then potentially mean, again, an opportunity for Hokanui governance and council governance to come together and discuss that legislative direction change, what that means, what we could potentially do about it. And again, it would just require us being connected and communicating with the regional councils, the consenting authority around what we wanted to do there, acknowledging the fact that we've still got a process to go through. But there's a number of different steps and options. It really depends on what the information that comes out from government. But yeah, there's options available to the council at this stage.
Councillor Ravel.
Just to be a little bit more specific on one part of that question, the law applies as at the date that the hearing takes place. But as the General Manager highlighted, if there is a change to the legislation of such significance, then it would be totally appropriate at the upper end to actually consult further before changing any application that's lodged. May find that if the changes are significant, that has to be notified again.
So we could be back to square one. Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, through the chair. Because we did discuss this at the time about the science of the specific thing, that if it wasn't effective going onto the land, that we could adjust the consent. So that's another part of the process that we could work through still. Cool, thank you.
So just confirm that we have suggested that we actually undertake a pilot in this consent to ensure that we can sort of capture the benefits of that and understand some of the operational requirements around discharge via wetland. So that is still part of our consent application that we will be working with, so that provides that opportunity also.
Mayor Ben Bell.
Thank you for that, Chair and Jason. Have we done the research into what discharged land would look like? Is that included in this $800,000 that we've already spent?
Through the chair, yes. So, yeah, a large part of that work is focused around discharge to land.
Sorry, discharge to water.
Discharge to water.
Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, I think that the assessment of environmental effects is all around discharge to water and looking at what impact we have on the river. So I guess it's considered in part, and if it was going to be purely just a discharge to river, we'd have to revisit some aspects, but a lot of the work would still be useful and valid.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just got one final thing to say, and I have full faith in the staff about the full process on this thing, but we all know what the preferred option is for our local iwi. We all know what the preferred option is. And my fundamental dismay about the whole thing is the cost factor. And herein lies the problem, until central government makes a decision.
Because we could double that by having to start our business case again.
That's correct.
Jason.
I think what the question from Mayor Bell and answered by Mayor is that we wouldn't have to go back to square one on this. There's quite a lot of work that's been done. It would just be again, because there's a number of upgrades to the existing ponds. There's the treatment plant that we're looking at as well, and so it would just be which step of the process is, do we need to go. Again, a lot of the work has been around different discharge to land options, and so the discharge to water, again, is just, that's a part of possibly then just sidestepping part of that process, so it wouldn't be a complete back to zero.
Yeah, I understand that, but what I'm looking at is the article in the paper today, when they fundamentally said what their preferred option is.
Any further comments? Would someone, if there's no further comments, Councillor McDonnell. Right. Any further comments? Would someone like to, Councillor Fraser?
We also have a problem in this town too, of the continuation of the separation of pipes up how many streets in Gore, which again will have a better effect on our ponds by cutting down, I would say, Matt, would it be 30 to 40% of the intake into the pond?
Through your chair, I'm not actually sure that we've done that assessment as to the quantity of water. It would certainly make a difference, but at the end of the day, there's still some significant upgrades to the treatment plant required, particularly when you're looking at dry weather flows, when I guess when you're looking at the middle of summer, when the river's the lowest is when we potentially have the biggest impact from our wastewater discharge when it's not raining. While stormwater separation will provide some benefit, I don't think it would get you away from doing an upgrade completely.
Thank you. No further comment. Would someone move that the report be received? Councillor Phillips, and seconded Councillor McDonnell, although Councillor Ben Bell.
Sorry, Chair. One last question, just around. I know that we've approved it on the 30th of April. Is this likely to come back to council again between now and the consent being lodged? Just with it going to Hukanui-Runonga, will, if they have any changes or advice, will that be coming back via council?
Jason.
Not at this stage, not unless there was a change to the consent. We've sort of, ideally we'd like to get the application in. We're sort of slightly behind where we need to be, but if there was something of concern that came out of that process, then you would probably look to bring it back. Otherwise, it would be another update at the next Assets and Infrastructure Committee.
We have a motion and the report be received. A mover and a seconder. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? It's carried. Page 30, the Mataura River Crossing project update, and Matt will report on that again. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just again take the report as read, and in terms of an update, we've now had some further comments back from Hadley and Brunton around a few of the outstanding items that need to be agreed on in the contract, and so it's down to just a handful of things now, and we're catching up with Anderson Lloyd, the lawyer who's helping us with that, on Thursday, so hoping to get those things closed out sooner rather than later so that we can get the contract executed and the design process underway. Happy to take any questions.
I noticed there's a few more orange dots on the page. Any comment on that?
So I mean, I guess the main one is around just getting this contract finalised. It's probably taken a little bit longer than we had anticipated, but I guess mindful that we do need to get the contract right, given the scope of the project. So I think it's worthwhile taking that time to make sure that we're comfortable with the contract. And obviously, I guess the other thing is just around Te Mata Arawai's requirements to have our treatment plants fully compliant with Pro-Design requirements by the end of 2025, which we're still on track to do, but it just puts that bit more significance around the project program and making sure that we get it completed within that time frame.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matt, I looked there at the geotech investigation that cost twice, well, just over twice what we thought it was going to cost. Can you just expand on that, why that was? I saw your explanation, we found but why did it then cost an extra $63,000 for that to be completed? Yeah,
so because we found some unexpected things, we then made the decision to undertake some extra boreholes and do some test pitting, which we hadn't originally allowed for. I guess we felt that because we found those issues, it was important to fully understand them so that we could address that risk through the design process. So while it did cost more in that initial investigation work, it's far better to find those things, and basically the reason that you do that investigation work is to try and understand those things early on in the piece rather than finding them out later on when you don't have a chance to allow for them in the design process. So while it's cost us a little bit more money up front, it's actually a good thing in terms of the risk for the project.
Thank you. Councillor McDonnell.
Just a question for you, Matt, through the chair. I see our timelines are getting tighter with the the 1st of August is the expected completion date. In the project, are there jobs that can be done simultaneously, like drilling and laying the pipeline from different places, so that we don't doing it in a linear fashion, we can do several jobs at once, so we can speed it up? So when the drilling's finished, you can just connect the pipes in within a few days or something?
Through the chair, yeah, that's certainly something that we're thinking about and monitoring. I guess the preferred approach is to get the pipeline underneath the river first, so that if there are any changes or issues with getting that section completed, we can allow for that in the interconnecting pipework. I guess it's something that we'll monitor as we go, and if those timeframes are starting to look tight, we can perhaps undertake that work in parallel. Yeah, the preference at this stage is to complete them one after the other, if we can.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just got a couple of questions. The geotech work has come up to about 123 now, but the contingency of 823, is it back down now because of the higher cost down to 7, or is that 123 above already allowed for in that contingency, or is the contingency down already? Can someone answer that question?
Through the chair, so that I guess that contingency is allowing for that increase in.
Okay, so it's down to 700 already. So
no.
Right. Okay then. Thanks. So the other thing I've got a bit of a concern about is where the geotech had found the open landfill, cleanfill spaces. The pipework, does it have to go deeper underneath it or around the side? Is that going to cost more?
Through the chair, I suspect it'll go underneath it, but that design process hasn't been completed yet, and that'll be the next phase of the design works. But now that we fully understand that
so that's
painful area, we can.
So there'll be an added extra cost as well.
I wouldn't have thought it would be significant.
Okay.
No.
The thing that concerns me, Mr. Chair, is that we haven't got anything under the ground yet. We've only allowed a certain percentage for one, and I'm just concerned that we haven't got enough money set aside here in this project. While I have faith in the staff, I'm just concerned. It's a risk for me.
There is risks in this project, and we're trying to cover them, but I mean, there's going to be still a lot more risks than probably a physical bridge over the river. Would that be the right comment, Matt?
Yeah, through the chair, yeah, there's always risk and a reasonable level of uncertainty around costs when you're in the earlier stage of the projects, and I guess that's the investigation work that is trying to I guess ensure we understand those risks and deal with them early as possible. Yeah, and I guess the key thing will be that once the design of the drill shot is completed, and Hadley and Brunton have gone through their risk assessment and cost analysis, that's when we'll start to have an accurate understanding of what the costs are likely to be, and the council is fully entitled to withdraw from the contract at that point if it's uncomfortable with the costs.
Thank you. David? No.
Apologies, I was just acknowledging somebody outside the window. Sorry. It's difficult for me to engage in reading. There's been 3 questions that have been asked already. I had all the same questions, but maybe if I can, through you, Chair, just a slight variation on one of those questions. The time frame. Get back to the time frame, Matt. My sense, certainly with my experience with geotechnical investigations, is they tend to only go in one direction, and that is time frames tend to be expanded. 4 months doesn't seem to be a lot
Through the chair. Yeah, so I mean, I guess one point to note is I don't think that deadline, the December 2025 deadline, is 100% hard and fast. And if we can demonstrate to Te Mātua ROI that we've made steady progress, and you know, we're on track to have it completed by March 2026 or something like that, you know, I think they're going to be fairly understanding of that. Yeah, it would be if we couldn't demonstrate that we were making any progress towards achieving full compliance, that Te Mātua ROI would be sort of putting us under you know, some strict requirements.
And if I could just make one observation, Chair, through you, just certainly again from my experience of projects where you've got a large proponent of the technical works, then something like a 30% contingency is entirely applicable, which I hope Mark's got here. So it feels about right to me, but this is a risky project. Full stop.
I think we'd all agree with you there. Any further comments? Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think we need to clarify, we'll be carrying the risk, not the company that's boring under the river.
So, yeah, I mean, I think this has been discussed before, but the council will have an opportunity to transfer risk onto the contractor, but that will come at a cost. And I guess that's just the contracting game at the end of the day. They're not going to take on risk without some sort of financial reward. And it's a balancing act between, you might transfer across a large amount of risk to the contractor, but ultimately you'll end up paying more because they've taken on that risk up front. And so, yeah. I mean, I think while it is a risky project, or there's certain risks associated with the project, I think it's important to remember that these sort of projects are successfully completed around the country reasonably commonly. And there are some examples of them, I guess, coming up some pretty significant challenges, but at the end of the day, a lot of civil construction projects come up against those challenges. So, yeah, and yeah.
Thank you. Councillor McPhail.
Thank you, through the chair. Look, I was harping back to the putting the pipe in before the going through the river. I find a great deal of difficulty with that because it's going to go there, the piping's going down to there. So what you're saying, if we've got to hold up with the geotech putting the pipe under the river, we could be bringing the pipe down and having it ready, which would cut down on the time in the long run if we get held up. Is it not? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Could look silly if we had to put a UV filter and a filter at Hillbury Ave.
Yeah, so I guess that would be the ultimate issue, is that if we ultimately couldn't get the pipe under the river, and we then had two pipes laid to either side of the river, we're I guess forced down a path to connect that pipeline. By not installing the two sections on either side of the river, it I guess leaves us open with a few more options. And particularly, I think, once Hadley and Brunton have gone through the design process and presented the risk matrix and the cost estimates, then perhaps that's the time to start progressing forward with the pipeline on either side of the river. Just, yeah, I guess try and not to force the council into a situation where they're forced to make a decision, leaving some options on the table.
But we do have to make a decision because we haven't got a timeline to do it. So that unfortunately, Councillor Phillips would be correct, and we have to put a bridge over there at the same place.
Well, as was previously mentioned, we could look at upgrades to the Hillbury Ave treatment plant or something like that.
Okay.
Certainly a pipe across the river is preferred, but yeah.
Sounds like exciting times the next 12 months. Would someone, no further comment, would someone like to move that this report be received and dealt with? Councillor Fraser, seconder. Councillor Phillips. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? It's carried. Hillbury Avenue Pump Station project. I think this is pretty straightforward, but we'll hear from Aaron, is it? Matt again. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The civil works on this project are now largely completed. The building's complete, and underground pipework is complete, and we're just really waiting on our electrical contractor to complete some of the electrical works before we then transfer the pumps across and get all the pipework connected. So hoping we can get it closed out sooner rather than later. Happy to take any questions.
Just as a status on the program on the electrical, is that just on the orange status mean anything, or is it just sort of just behind time?
Yeah, we're just slightly behind time, yep.
Thank you. No other questions? No further questions. Would someone like to move that the report be received? Thanks. Stuart McDonnell and Councillor McPhail seconded it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Murray, would you like to comment on the
Terry will start and Murray will jump in if he
Yeah.
wants to.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. The Ontario Street Bridge upgrades, I'll take it that the report's been read. Got some nice pictures at the back that I'm happy to elaborate on, or if there's any other questions, I'm happy to take them.
Murray's like to comment too, thanks.
You need a mic.
I'd just like to emphasise. I'd just like to emphasise the improvement in the level of service that we've been able to achieve through this project. Originally, the bridge was below the Class 1 capacity, and as most, if not all, councillors will be aware, or most of the gravel that we use on our roads and NZTA use on their roads comes across that bridge. So the improvement that we've been able to achieve at a relatively low cost has enabled full truckloads to legally go across that bridge. So it's been had quite a benefit to both the council and the wider community.
Thank you. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify for me, this bridge is up for renewal in 10 to 15 years. Is that correct, how I read it?
Through you, Mr. Chair. That probably about 15 years. So it's prolonged the life of the bridge. But obviously that bridge will be reassessed on a regular basis. So it's quite possible that it may go further than that. But that's a reasonably conservative assessment, and hopefully we'll be able to push that out even further.
Thank you, Murray, because my next question is we're putting Class 1 vehicles over that now, and they're not light. So to me that would take the life of the bridge the other way, but I could be wrong, and I'll take what you said.
Yes, through the chair, it's quite likely, I suspect, that it has been taking a number of Class 1 loaded vehicles anyway, but this gives us some certainty that that can be done safely, and that the normal wear and tear that would be expected on a Class 1 bridge will occur without any accelerated deterioration. Mr. Trotter may want to comment further on that, possibly.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Through you, Mr. Chair. Following the initial investigations into the upgrades that we were doing, we had an assessment carried out from WSP, and I think that 10 to 15 years would have been prior to any of this work being done. So if we were to carry out another assessment, I would say that I'd be confident that that would probably change. And they're basing that assessment on a lot of unknowns. We don't have good record keeping for a lot of these bridges. So those abutments are, as it says in there, they're nearly 100 years old. So they're the original part of the bridge. The superstructure's been changed out, but the original part is the abutments, and I think that's pretty confident that that's what they're relating to there.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie.
Question for you, Murray. I had a punter come in and see me that's a regular user of that bridge, and he had issues. Now, I'm sorry, I can't tell you which end it was, but he said there was quite a dip and he thought it was a bit dangerous. Did that person, he may have come and seen you, I'm not sure.
Yes, through the chair. Yeah, we are aware of an issue with the speed humps. That there were 2 speed humps at the Gore Township end of the bridge.
Yeah.
Now we've flattened out and made a plateau off the end of the bridge because we were concerned that part of the damage, or some of the damage that was occurring to the planks at the Gore end of the bridge, was because of the continuing bouncing of the suspension as it hit the end of the bridge. So we've taken that out, but it has exaggerated the slope of the west end of that speed hump. So we have we plan to amend that gradient on that, so it's a gentler slope on that to make it an easier trip over there.
Thank you, Murray.
Thank you. Councillor McNeil.
Murray, I have one quick question through the chair. The build-up of flood debris, are we going to be, if this happens in the future, we're going to be clearing that regularly? Because that can damage a bridge if a whole lot of stuff builds against the central pier.
Through the chair, yes, that is something that will be done on a regular basis. That particular bridge has had a central pier, has had more piers on it in the past, and that's one of the reasons that it has been at a lower capacity than the 100%. It was modified at some stage over the last 20 or 30 years, and we suspect it's probably because as a result of debris catching on the additional piers. But it is something that we will be monitoring and clearing as required.
I had some comment too, Murray, on the time of the notification of when the work was to be done. I think it clashed with Easter, and some people were a bit short-changed, they told me.
Through the chair, we did an amount of consultation prior to closing the bridge. Unfortunately, it possibly wasn't wide enough, and we have taken some lessons out of that. We've got another bridge we're about to replace as well, which we will improve our consultation. We did consult with the heavy traffic industry. But yeah, there were lessons that we can take out of that. We did also have quite a short lead-in time into the actual start of the works due to several factors. But yeah, no, that we will improve on that in the future.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, Mr. Chair, we originally had the works programmed for the period when the field days were on, and that was highlighted as being a no-go. So we had also programmed the contractor to start then. So a lot of the, what you might say, the hurried start following the field days was contractor availability. We pushed them back, and we had to bring them back in at a reasonably short time frame.
So I just had a couple of rings from people that were notified, and of course they couldn't get the work done before because the Easter period came in between. Yeah. Mayor Ben Bell.
Thank you, Chair. Just, I guess, to further that point, myself and Jason met with a resident on behalf of several other residents who raised those same concerns around notification and also the hours that the contractors were doing. So Jason did a fantastic job in addressing those issues. It was completed within budget, but just would like to back that there were some lessons learned, possibly around putting some signposting up in the area beforehand as well, as one of the examples of where we could improve. But overall, I think we managed to address those concerns that had been raised by the community.
And I think they'll be more pleased to have it up to Class 1.
Yes, they were very, very impressed by the quality of the bridge that had been completed, so that is some positive news.
Thank you. What's any, Councillor Phillips?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just a question for Mario Terry then. In your analysis then, is there any more major concerns about any higher costs than just in general maintenance for any bridges we've got in our district?
Through you, Mr Chair. We're currently waiting for the next tranche of WSP inspection reports to come through, and we believe at this stage that the priorities of that major upgrades and maintenance hasn't changed since we started looking at this planning from last year. So other than the bridge renewals, which is a totally separate budget, we don't envisage that there's going to be any red flags.
Yeah, sorry. I'll just add to that. We have been doing a lot of bridge or structural component replacements over the last 6 months to a year. So it's also taking the pressure off some of those bridges that had been identified by WSP for further investigation, but probable replacement. Some of those bridges have now been able to have their lives prolonged. So that's quite handy in light of the reduced funding that NZTA have allocated to us over the next 3 years for that activity. So that's an approach that we will be continuing to take.
Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Mr Chair. That's was one of my next things then. Thank you, Murray, about the document that came out from NZTA in regards to emergency works, the review, looking at the cost to shift to councils. There's a documentation and consultation document coming out for that. And I think that this kind of document needs to go to either to audit and risk as a high red flag, because at the end of the day, if governments say that due to uncontrolled climate variations, the emergency works will shift the cost to councils for full repair, well, where do we get the money for that?
Could be very hard, and probably one thing about the Gore Council, it's not quite as bad as their neighbours. They haven't got as many bridges.
No, you're right, but I think that we should strongly agree with our local government in putting through a consultation document of some sort to say to the central government, no, hang on a second, we can't afford these things. You know, stop doing this to us.
I noted also in Gisborne and Napier area, there's still a lot of bridges not fixed. Yeah. Jason, did you have a comment?
There's an item coming up around that very issue, and I think to audit and risk. Is that right, Murray? Or was that last week?
Through the chair, I'm pretty sure that's aimed at the next council meeting, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Would someone have any further comments on this report? If not, would someone move that the report be received? Mayor Ben Bell moved, and Mayor Phillips seconded. Sorry, Councillor Phillips. We promoted you slightly. Seconded it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Brings us to the end of the open part of our meeting, and our next part is we've got to discuss the general subject of each matter. Will be in committee, and